I'm in an industry where I have no income limits. I have no one telling me what I can or can't do. The only thing that can disrupt it is state government or federal government or local government. The impact of one realtor and one transaction that has a negative impact on the consumer, and that consumer is either a legislator or related to a legislator, turns into a bill that's slated against every practitioner in our industry, saying that we're all bad.
It comes down to this, like, as a realtor, like, why should you care? Like, can you guys answer that? Because I think that a lot of times, a lot of what we do does feel far removed.
Welcome to the Signature Buzz. I'm Brandon here with Chris, and I'm super excited about today because we got the one and only CEO of the Nevada Realtors, Tiffany Banks.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, you guys.
So we've got a series of tough questions to ask you today. We'll have like the hot seat. Some things you might be uncomfortable with, but you have to answer everything.
If I'm uncomfortable, I just defer to Brandon Roberts or defer to Chris Bishop. So it'll be perfect.
How do you feel about that? This panel, this is going to be exciting too, because not only are we your fearless leaders here at Signature, I'm also the president of the state association here in Nevada, and we've got the vice chair of legislative here in Nevada. So
we're going to former state president.
It's just a little blip.
He's past.
It was on the camera the whole time.
Yeah, you might recognize him as the COVID president.
Yeah.
Right, for the state.
Well, it was an interesting time to be president, and I thought I had the weirdest year ever, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think that you guys have the weirdest year ever because you have, for the first time, a president who has served or will have served 23 months, 23.8 months in office. And so I'm going to actually start with you, Brandon, and I'm going to say, what is it like to do the job again? Because every president I know, Tom included, would love, Tom has done it again, I guess it's past president, but they would love to do it over and over and over if they could. You actually get to do it. So tell us your experience of the first year and what you're going to do different.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
He gets to live the dream.
Yeah, the dream. No, because I got the dream team, right? Well, I'll tell you. So when I served as the LVR president, it takes you about 8 months to figure it out. And then about the 8-month mark, they start winding you down. And so at the end of it, you're kind of going, man, if I had one more year, if I could do it again, I would do things different. So exciting to be able to have the opportunity to do this one again. And mostly because of the great executive team and being able to work with Tiffany. So I'm excited about the things that are going to be different this year and the stuff I have to clean up from the guy that kind of messed him up last year.
Well, when you kind of went into this, it wasn't that intent. It was the intent of, righting the ship and doing certain things to make everything have a continuity factor of it. Now that you have that perspective and you have a year under your belt, what's your big goal, would you say, for Nevada Realtors going into next year?
Same goal I had going into every year is don't mess it up. No, I think it's continuing to finalize some of the changes and the refreshes that we're doing. We've looked at every program, every committee, everything through the entire organization and just kind of reimagined it. And so seeing some more of that stuff come to fruition and then setting up to continue on.
So Tiffany, you're in an interesting position because this is going to be your third or second year as the CEO?
Second year.
And you've been with Nevada Realtors quite a while as the lead counsel.
Year.
Yeah. So what was it like having a president again? Because the good thing for a CEO, you usually get rid of them after a period of time. And now you got to do it again.
Well,
what was your experience?
No, Brandon. So of all presidents to have a redo presidency or 2 years in a row, Brandon is an absolute dream. I think exactly what he said, having the opportunity to set the foundation this year. And it's been exciting because we knew that we had this year to continue working and continue to have that growth. So a lot of what we've done this year is to relook at everything. And now I think we have implemented a lot this year, but I think next year it's this is go time. And Brandon being how Brandon is, because you all know him, it's what do you want to do this year? What is your one thing? He's like, no, I love all of it. It's all good. But it's been fun to kind of get into broker relationships or broker value has been a really important thing of bringing in other brokers from across the state and seeing not only what we do, but how can we add value to you so to better serve their agents and then the members at large. And I think that's been a really exciting shift that we've made this year, thinking about next year.
So that all sounded fantastic. And that was all roses and champagne. So tell me some things that weren't so great about this last year, some issues that you guys dealt with, some things that you had to fix. I mean, like, not the industry, but, at Nevada Realtors, what was the big hurdle to jump over?
The year started off really rocky, actually. Nevada got named in 2 lawsuits, copycat lawsuits. That was a big deal, big hurdle. We looked at the accounting, did a complete overhaul of the accounting department. Those were 2 really big hurdles.
And a big financial audit we did in February with the moving into the CEO role. The board asked that we do a financial audit. And so it was probably the largest financial audit undertaking that we had done in quite some time. And so we were able to come through with that. And it was more of just streamlining these processes to make sure that you would get the answer that, you were looking for, which is a clean audit. And so we were really excited just to have that. But it takes time, right? It's like manpower to actually work with the auditors, find the backups they need, go back and forth. So more than anything, it's just tedious. But at the end of the day, happy to get through that and have processes that are far more streamlined so that, at a click of a button, or if you're asked something, you have it immediately.
Along with changing softwares, so that everything is more accessible and we can get better numbers and get them quicker.
Well, and I think one of the things that many don't know is that every year Nevada Realtors does an audit, but it's not as in depth. And I want to go into that for a second, because usually what happens is the auditor goes through a series of samples. They pull out a statement and they pull samples and they check it out and things like that. And what you're actually saying is that you guys went through and looked at everything, like every single one of those little charges and the backup for it.
Yes. And more than anything, it wasn't so much that we were looking for a business purpose. It was looking for the backup receipt. So, we one that was really hard to find was this chili bowl receipt from Washington, D.C. Ben's Chili Bowl, where we knew who was there, that they had a chili bowl, French fries, and a drink. But to find that receipt and to actually track that down. And so, we're able to look at that and know the business purpose existed because we know that leader was in DC for our meetings. It was just tracking down the backup. And so, but now we have Melissa on staff who's just done a phenomenal job. And she actually goes through the receipts thoroughly every single week and then every single month. So if there's one missing, and by the way, my missing receipt is Starbucks, and people know my Starbucks order by heart and they know how much my total is. But finding backup Starbucks receipts, if you don't actually get it at the time, is really hard. What do you think with Starbucks? It would be easier?
I don't even want to go down that road, but like I go to Starbucks every day and my order's the same. And every time it comes up a different total by like 2 or 3 cents, and it drives me crazy. But I want to step back for a few minutes too, to look at the fact that when you say overhaul, you had the most dramatic overhaul at Nevada Realtors I've ever seen, because you had multiple staff positions that vacated over the change of leadership. And you brought in some amazing new talent. And it's been a decade. I mean, I think the great last hire was you in the last change that happened. And so discuss that. I mean, like, how did you guys go through the process of deciding what things were needed and picking the right people? I mean, that must have been a crazy thing. I know that he was really instrumental in the decision making, but tell us about that.
Well, I was actually just thinking about that yesterday, that like we're kind of going into this new era, almost like into next year, that there is not going to be anyone that was there, period, when I started. And that was even moving into this year. But even like some of the vendors and some of those people, we've actually looked at everyone from PR to, like all of our programs, which it's been a challenge. And I think that having this leadership team have the courage, and I'm going to use that word, to actually take these hard looks at the relationships that we have that exist and say, is this serving us? Is this serving the members? Are we getting what we're paying for? Is this the best way to be fiscally responsible in what we're utilizing our money for? And it hasn't been easy. I mean, there's been a lot of conversations, and there's been a lot of, is this the right decision? And when I say this leadership team is all about, let's try something. If it doesn't work, like, we can figure it out then, but at least we know we tried.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. I have none.
Follow that. Okay, well, I'll give you my thoughts from an outside perspective. This is last couple of years I haven't been on the state board and I haven't been as involved, but I've watched what you guys have done, and it's interesting to me that when I think of change and progression and things like that, we do become very stagnant. We've always done it this way, so let's do it again that way. And I will say, I feel that you guys have really pulled open the veil of everything, and I think the average member doesn't understand. And the average realtors out there practicing, they don't pay attention to these things, but that overhaul will lead to the progression of our industry and the ability for Nevada Realtors to defend what we do. And so with the lawsuits and everything you guys piled on top of yourselves, I mean, try to think of more to do in 25 than you did in 24, right? What are the big plans for 25 now that you've overhauled a lot of the association?
Well, and I want to stop you for a minute because I think it's really important to note that although we're doing this massive overhaul, we also want to keep the good institutional knowledge and the people that are in this organization and on our leadership for the right reasons. And so we have the people that have been around for many, many, many years and have been through, recessions and have been through tough times with the organization. And we want that knowledge. And in fact, we want to expand how that group of people is used while looking towards the future and kind of letting go of everything else. So I just want to point that out because I think that we're not trying to start everything new. We want to make sure that we keep the things that work and let go of the rest. Exactly.
And it's a good point, because just because you've done things a certain way all the time isn't a reason to continue to do that. But just because you're making changes doesn't mean you have to change everything either. And so I think it's important to get the perspective of people that have been through it, that have made decisions, that have failed at different things too, and seen what does and doesn't work. So we get all the information to make the right decision. And it's important to understand that, yes, we have a great executive team, and yes, we make a lot of decisions, but we do it a lot based on information that we gather from others.
So now I'm going to ask some tough questions, and I think I'm asking these because from our company perspective, we've had a lot of inquiries, and it's nice that we have a connection point to answer these questions. But I mean, if you're on Facebook, you see some stupid things every day that you're just like, what? Does that make sense? And since we have you both here to ask the questions, I'm going to ask them. So first question, and this is one that's gone on for quite some time, and I know we've tried to articulate it, but what does Nevada Realtors do for me as a realtor? I mean, I know I pay dues to you guys, and I know that you get that money. I mean, what do you do?
Hannah?
I'll start. So there's a difference between the national, the state, and the local, right? We all do different things, and we all play our part. On the local, they take care of a lot of education and different things like that on the local level for the local agents. On the state level, we focus a lot on your state advocacy and legislative, and that's why you're like vice chair of legislative. We're about to go into a legislative session that we're going to have a lot of input on bills and things that are written that affect not only the owners and property owners, but also our industry and the state as a whole. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we do on the state level is advocacy.
And just to break that down for a second, advocacy, when it's done by the state, is to protect what? I mean, what are you advocating for? Are you advocating so that I get more commission? Are you advocating so that, I have a license and they put more education on me? I mean, what topics do you usually hone in on?
We look out for things that affect the pay of agents, yes, but our main focus is property rights and creating the ability for people to own property in Nevada and to protect those rights. Looking at property tax and rent control and different things that is going to affect the cost and affordability and people wanting to live in Nevada.
So basically, that right of quiet enjoyment of keeping people out of my property and telling me what I can and can't do with it.
And why does it matter to you as like a realtor? It matters to you because those are your clients. Those are your lifeblood, right? Like if you have those people that start to move to other states because they don't have the use of their property, then you lose a client or a potential client. And we also look at, everything to do with how you operate your business as an independent contractor. We've talked about it for many, many, many years. If there were to be a shift and realtors, licensees were not to be considered independent contractors, that would be a big shift to this business. You also look at, I like to really boil it down lately to one thing, and it's sales tax on services. That's one thing that we know every year there's going to be legislation for, and every year we fight that until the very, very, very last day. What is sales tax on commission or sales tax on services? Sales tax on services is a sales tax on your commission. So before you earn it,
It's an income tax.
yeah. So you could potentially be taxed upon tax, right? And so when you think about it, what you're paying us every month, it's really a Starbucks. When you think about our Starbucks order, it's one Starbucks order, and the amount of advocacy, both for independent contractor, for your commission, exactly to your point of if you have to take additional hours or what services are provided for you. Like these are all things that we're constantly working towards, like business licenses. Like, I mean, you should read some of the things that come in that actually like really would make your job a lot more complicated. And so if we're able to fight that, and there's no other organization that has the sheer amount of numbers that we have. You look at gaming, you look at mining, they have money, but what we have that works for us is our sheer amount of like bodies that could, like to have that amount of bodies, what does that mean? Like, let's break that down. That means that your legislator wants to listen to what your concerns are because they know that there's 20,000 of us plus all the homeowners. There's a lot of people that you're making laws that impact. And so that's beneficial to us in getting officials elected. We work very, very, very hard to make sure that we have a seat at the table with elected officials to listen to our concerns. It's like, if going into your office, if you didn't have a vested interest in their success, then like you don't care, right? And so it's like this similar way to having, an elected official that has a vested interest in your success. So you go in, it's like, what can we do to collaborate to get this done together to pass good laws? We know. I mean, think about your experience, Chris. We're gonna flip it to you. What are what happens? What happens when bad laws are passed?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that we've preemptively defended the industry against that could have made it so that I couldn't sell houses. And it would have made it so people don't want to move to Las Vegas. And it would have made it so it wasn't the greatest city in the world to live in, right? And a lot of that you got no credit for because you were so good at what you did, no one heard about it. And so when I think of Nevada Realtors, I think of you guys at the guardians of the gate. Like, because of the industry I have, because of the fact that I'm in an industry where I have no income limits, I have no one telling me what I can or can't do. The only thing that can disrupt it is state government or federal government or local government. And you guys are the ones monitoring everything to make sure that I have the right to practice. And I think that it's so undervalued and underacknowledged because those who benefit from it don't know how much you went through to make it happen. And, every year, if I wasn't involved, if I hadn't been on legislative, I don't know that I would have seen it. It wasn't in the news. It wasn't, on a letter that went out to everybody. And you guys try to do a good job of promoting that, I think more now than ever before. But like, it is a service that we couldn't do without. And for the cost of a Starbucks, right? While you're enjoying that coffee, you have the ability to pay for it. And that's what you defended. I think that's great.
Well, in being on legislative, I mean, we're getting ready to go into a legislative session. And so we're basically going into battle on what topics are going to come up. What are some of the topics you're hearing ahead of time? And what do you think's on the forefront?
No new taxes. I mean, every year taxes are at the forefront, whether it's property taxes, sales taxes, random taxes. I mean, just things that we had the margins tax come up a while back, which doesn't really hurt the average realtor isn't making over $4 million, but most real estate companies are earning $4 million in commissions. And so if you think about that, all of these costs that happen, all of these taxes that they're just let alone to, take care of different issues throughout the state, cause an agent to pull that money out of their pocket before they ever earn it or split it with their broker. And so when we think about that, and you brought the sales tax on service, that's been one for 2 decades that's come up because of the state budget and the issues that they have. And one time I heard it, it would be like imagining there'd be a 3% split on every single time your check passes to someone's hands. So from the consumer to the title company, from the title company to the broker, from the broker to you, you just paid that split. And Nevada Realtors stood in front of that several times.
Yeah. And I really want to pause on that thought because when you really, really, really think about that impact on your bottom line, like that's massive, right?
That's 10 years of dues.
Yeah, I mean, that's to be taxed at all those levels. And by the way, these things are not far off. Like, this is actual legislation that if it's not put in a bill at the beginning of the year, like one line, if we're not watching it, one line on day 119, this stuff can get slipped in. And so it's that level of advocacy for your entire like livelihood, right?
It's the small occurrences, and this is what shocks me about this. The impact of one realtor and one transaction that has a negative impact on the consumer, and that consumer is either a legislator or related to a legislator, turns into a bill that's slated against every practitioner in our industry, saying that we're all bad. And I've sat down with you and many of the legislative leadership, and they look at us and say, well, realtors only want this. They don't care about tenants. It's not true. Half of my income comes from tenants that I'm helping and supporting. You own a property management company where that company is deprived or dependent on tenants coming in and renting those properties and paying their rents. And so, like, it's just the stigmatism that because I have this or I do this, I only care about one thing. And it's been that bad where one legislator had an experience where they went to apply for something and said, oh, I'm going to fix this industry. And they don't understand the ripple effect of what that does. The other thing you said, 900 bills on average were reading, not like monitoring, but reading. You've had to sit there days and read.
Yeah, for the one line that they slip in. And when you open up a chapter of the law, you're risking
Everything else
unintended consequences, right? And when we say like just pass good law, just pass good policy, I think that's something that also there could be great ideas, but then you're having so many different stakeholders that are coming together and trying to negotiate to get what they want. And it's rushed because 120 days actually goes fast. And then you pass a program that they don't have, they might have funding for, but they don't have people in place. So for us as a Nevada Realtors, it's really, really, really important to ask the hard questions. That's why we don't mind hard questions here, because we'd rather ask the hard questions. We're used to it. Ask the hard questions and actually think things through so that we can come up with the best plan.
Well, there's a lot of work done during legislative session, but there's a lot of pre-work that goes on going into that. I mean, one of the big topics that was fought back last session was rent control.
Mm-hmm.
And we played a lot of defense on that. And Nevada Realtors, and under the leadership of Tiffany, really decided to go more on the offense this year. And so can you explain some of the things we've done to get the message out? Because rent control in communities, it doesn't work. It's a short-term fix or try to put a Band-Aid on something, but in the end, it affects the community a lot worse, right? And so we know that, but when there was polling done, the majority of the public, it sounds like a good thing. And so we had to educate them. So kind of how did we go about that?
Yeah, I think the last polling that was done was like over 75 to 80% of Nevadans believe that rent control is a good idea. And you think about all of the work that we do and making sure that people can get into homes that they can afford, and making sure that tenants can get into properties that they can afford, like, and having landlords that work with tenants. Like, we do believe and support all of those things, right? But when you actually go through a process and have rent control in any form in state law, that actually has a massive amount of unintended consequences. And that's not just us, you as legislative vice chair, me as CEO, and you as state president saying that. It's actually like every economist that you'll talk with, they have done so much research on this issue, and the amount of negative impact on an economy as a whole. Like, they'll say the best thing for another state is if Nevada enacts rent control, because Nevada enacts rent control, developers leave, development stops, your cranes disappear, jobs. We talk to you talk to these people that are in unions, like that are in the city to work. They'd have to go way far to actually find jobs. And like, so job creation then is minimized, or jobs are taken away. There's so many things that come in from the government saying you can't charge more than X amount, or you can't increase. And actually, if anything, what we found, because we've done this large campaign, and as in as many years probably, and you'll remember, we've never come out with our name on something. We always say, paid for by someone else. But it's been really important for us, so we can talk about it, to say, no, we're going to actually come out with this. like in our name as a Nevada Realtors, paid for by Nevada Realtors, and be confident in the information that we're putting out. And so we launched a campaign. I'd say it was only like 7-8 months ago, but it's gotten a ton of recognition, a ton of national recognition as doing something different. And what we've done is we haven't just said, this is why it doesn't work. We've actually gone into communities and met with legislators, city council people, union bosses, developers, tenants, small mom and pop landlords. Like, we've met with every kind of person in these communities and said, why doesn't rent control work? And they are like on their hands and knees, literally begging us, if we had the opportunity that you have to sit in front of your legislators today, to sit in front of your people and say, don't do this. This is what it's going to do. I mean, you literally see weeds. You see like a gorgeous development, and this is in St. Paul. You see like a gorgeous development. Like if that was in Vegas, it would be like the most gorgeous new planned community. And then you see weeds like taller than me growing up and just like trash and dirt. And so you have people driving in one gate that looks like it's going to be a thriving community, because once they enacted rent control, development stopped. And right now, by the way, they're trying to roll it back. They're trying to do everything they can to roll back because it's so problematic. And so, you know, what we've said to them is, if you were in our position, and it hasn't been passed in any form yet, but we know, because we know there's a bill on it, what would you do? And they said, we would talk to every person that you can, every voter, every homeowner, every realtor, from everybody from union. We're all like, to have that many differing stakeholders say the same thing, and these chief economists that we've interviewed. So what we're saying is, it's terrible, it's bad. And so we know it's a big fight, but the campaign we've launched is getting the message out there. We've had, I think 12 million impressions on the videos that we've done in just a few months. And actually 6 million of those 12 have watched our assets, our videos from beginning to end, and watched them again.
That's Brandon watching his own videos.
Yeah.
I'm not in the videos,
But to go back to this, you went to St. Paul, Minnesota. You actually found developments where rent control happened. You got the stakeholders that it happened to, and you had them speak on camera. These are people that supported it, like that went after it and said, okay. And now they're saying, oh my God, worst decision we ever made. Don't let it happen to you.
These are people like this city councilwoman that she said, you know, when it first came to me, I'm like, it's a great idea because this is helping my constituents, right? She goes, but then I dug deeper, and it was a massive fight. And she said, and I mean, you see her on camera. She says, the day that it passed, development stopped. My lower income seniors, the very people that rent control is supposed to protect, they actually were harmed overnight. And then you meet these mom and pop landlords, these two sisters. They were awesome. They're like, we don't have nice cars. We don't have anything. They're showing us their 25-year-old cars. They live together in this little house, but they love their tenants so much because they said, if it wasn't for us and as their landlord, they would move to Section 8, which was more expensive, by the way, more expensive than a mom and pop landlord, and where it's unsafe, where there's gunfire and people are killed outside those units. So they're like, we're not in it for the money. So you actually hear all these different, you know, like people who really care. And it's actually really mind blowing to hear some of the stories. But so we're actually doing whatever we can to make sure that doesn't happen to our state. So we keep, you know, we want solid healthcare. We want education opportunities. We want to grow, right? I mean, what region doesn't want to grow and thrive?
Well, it's a great point that rent control probably will be the number one talked about issue coming up. I think property taxes and the restructure of that will be another big one that we'll be talking about. And what's funny, you know, I think a lot of people don't understand either that the Realtor Party is a party that doesn't look at Republican or Democrat or independent. They look at issues, and they look at it from how will it affect the industry's ability to practice. And rent control is one of those things where we have people on both sides that have said, well, I kind of like the idea, and others have said absolutely not. But everyone, after the videos came out and after the information came out, said, oh my God, I had no idea. That, I think, is the value of what Nevada Realtors brings to everybody, is perspective, right? And I think that it's a perspective that bridges across the aisle to say, let's make sure that we have ability for you to buy a home and you to buy a home and me to own a home and be able to sell it at some type of process.
And Chris and Brandon, it comes down to this, like, as a realtor, like, why should you care? Like, can you guys answer that? Because I think that a lot of times, a lot of what we do does feel far removed, right? It feels like let them, they're fine, or like let the realtors that are making X amount of money pay for this. But like, you're paying your $20 a month, your Starbucks, but why should you care? Like, if you,
I think it's industry preservation. I mean, we can all look at examples of major thriving industries at one time that are no longer there. I remember my dad driving me back through areas that in the 50s and 60s were thriving, coal communities and steel and iron workers and all of these factories that are now just dead, like they're gone. And it's an example of, I don't know how it would have been affected or changed, but did they really work to preserve their industry? Or was it just the person who was making the money said, I don't care about the community around it. I just want to make money. And I think our industry is one that has thrived, and we are adding people every year. Even with these crazy things that happen, we still have people that want to get their real estate license and build a lifestyle that they can have of their own thriving business. And that's because you're preserving the industry. I haven't seen a travel agent in quite some time, but I know they're still out there. But do you think they've defended their industry? I don't.
well, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's the agent should care. They should understand a little bit more what's happening. It doesn't mean they have to do a lot. I mean, that's what Nevada Realtors is there for. But lean in a little bit. Try to understand. We have a PAC, Nevada Political Action Committee, that they interview candidates. They go through these processes of who to endorse. And like you said, it's not one party or the other. It's pretty even. And we don't call it like Republicans or Democrats. We call it the Republican Party. We call it the Realtor Party. And we do that for a reason, because we interview people that have the belief in property rights and moving forward in that region. And that's who we support. And so every year we put out every year that there's an election, we put out a voter guide. And I can't tell you the amount of hate emails that came back from that because they didn't agree with the candidate or the party that was being put up there. But we watch this and we look at their track record and their working relationship with them, because the most important thing for us is to be at the table to have the discussion. Because when decisions are made and you don't have a voice at the table, that's not good. And so you should care, and you should understand that the value of the membership dues that you pay, which isn't that much money, right? What it really benefits and how it benefits you, and how we're looking at it so that you don't have to do a lot. You just have to know that we're there watching, and there are people there that do care and that are doing the right thing for our industry and for the consumer out there.
Well, let's turn a little bit, because I get to ask the next question.
Before you leave, because it's going to probably be contentious, I want to talk about one other thing. So
You don't know.
what I love about working with the realtors, and this is again going on my 13th year now, is the sense of community. And so when I think about why you should care, why we should care as a collective, right? Like, that's what being a realtor is. It's not only are you helping your client find community, right? Like find their safe space, but you have the opportunity to have this community, to have this camaraderie, to have like these opportunities to like build and grow together. And so that's exactly like the environment that we foster at Nevada Realtors, and like what we want to continue to see you thrive.
So it leads into a great point that, there was this old adage that Rome could never be destroyed by an invading force, only by itself. And unfortunately, over the last year, we've seen a lot of infighting within the industry, within the different levels that are there. And I think Nevada Realtors has held its own and held the structure of community that you just put out there. But I want to ask a couple of the questions of things that we've seen that, people want to know the answer to. So is Nevada Realtors bankrupt?
No.
But this is something that was on pretty prominent posting saying that, they're out of money. They're going to be folding up. Can you share a little bit about the infrastructure and the support and why they're not bankrupt?
Well, first, we operate on a budget, right? And so all that the spending is approved by the board ahead of time. And so we operate within a budget so that we don't go bankrupt. We had the foresight of knowing that there was issues going on legally, and we even budgeted money to be able to handle that. We have reserves. We're a healthy organization. It's we're not bankrupt, and I think a lot of stuff that comes out is misinformation of people hearing something and running with something, and then social media trying to get the clicks and the likes and the comments and stuff. And it's frustrating to me to see some of this stuff. You won't see me engage in it. Number one, because I don't think you can win an argument on Facebook. I mean, pick up the phone if you truly had a question and worried about the finances of Nevada Realtors. Pick up the phone and call. We're here. We'll answer anything. We'll go everything through that process. But to argue this stuff out on Facebook I think it's really counterproductive for the realtor brand. I mean, we're doing a lot to try to change our image with the consumer, right? And then we're battling ourselves, putting out negative stuff about us, thinking that, Facebook is just about agents, like it's our own agent message board. And what you don't realize, or maybe you do, and people don't think about it or care, is the consumer seeing that. And that we're doing more damage to ourselves than anyone could.
Well, yeah, and I think you're making a great point we look at a budget every year and we look at, like what does it mean to have sound reserves and what are those reserves going to be used for? And I think this year has been a perfect example of, we were doing some pre-planning in January of, if we're sued, right, as an organization, if our brokers are sued, what happens? And we started to do pre-planning. We knew we had to meet with federal antitrust counsel. And the next week, we were named in the lawsuit. And we were one of the very first states named. And so if we hadn't already begun to think about that foresight of, let's look at what amount we'd have to spend, right? And that's what those reserves are for. They're there for the big lawsuits, and they're there to protect these big industry issues. And so when we have money in reserves to fight rent control, to fight sales tax on services, to fight summary evictions, to fight these things like face of foreclosure, those types of things that for those of you that were around then, that was a big deal. That's what the money that we're saving for in the reserves is used for. And we have used some of that this year. We are always doing our best to be fiscally responsible. And throughout this year, this leadership team has looked at things and said, you know what, maybe this isn't the right thing to do this year. Let's skip this. We've actually moved to having all of our board meetings, besides the last one of the year, at our state office and our PAC and legislative, either utilizing another building that we don't have to rent and pay for food and all these extra things, but actually utilizing the space at our office. And it's been great. It's been tight. And, we've had to pack people in there, but it's been a great use of our building. And then that's a way to save the members' dollars. And so
we're concerned, everything that's being said about loss of membership, right? That's revenue that comes in, dues revenue. And so we've looked at all that stuff, been very fiscally conservative, not because we had to, like we're struggling and we have to, it's because we should, and we should be smart with our money. And when we put out the budget this year, I mean, we cut a lot.
And I think that's a great point. Like we're looking at operating, we're a 501c6 or a not-for-profit organization, but we're looking at operating this like a business, right? And so we're looking at the things that we need to cut and re-looking at all of these vendor relationships. And like when I said, looking at PR and looking at the things that, what we've just always thrown money at, and maybe saying, maybe we don't need to continue to throw money at that. And maybe this is a better use of the members' dollars. And to your point, a lot of what we've had to combat actually has been PR, right? There's been so much negativity in the press. There's been so much negativity. And here we are trying to continue to say, this is why, like realtors do hold themselves to a different ethical standard. They are professional in this way. This is why we know you could go find that house on Google, but this is why there's nothing that's going to replace this personal relationship and the person that's going to work with you to navigate all the things. Like if an inspection comes in and shows, X amount of dollars that needs to be replaced and negotiate you getting that, that price down. And so there's nothing that's going to replace the realtor. Yeah. But what we're thinking of is all of the programs and services and opportunities that augment what you do to make your life easier to better serve your client. And so a lot of this is noise. for the great things that we're trying to do.
I hate asking the question. It's one that we've gotten over and over. It's one that people are saying and hearing out there. And it aggravates me that it even comes up, because we're not talking about a little reserves. You guys have millions in reserves, and we're talking about buildings that you own and assets that you have. And so when they actually look at it, it's someone who's never reviewed the financials of the organization and actually read the policies on your investment strategy and how secure those investments have to be. But it's just ironic that that's the fodder that's out there in the marketplace.
And since we're looking at everything, that is something that we're looking at this coming year is our investment policies, who we're investing with, what's the best use of our money to maximize return. Everything we're looking at is pretty much ROI, right? If we're putting these things out there, we're not just putting things out there to get like accolades. We want a return on our investment,
Sure.
whatever that looks like, whether it's through government affairs, through PR, through member benefits, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we're going to make sure that we get that back in some way.
All right, I got another question for you, and this is one that was in the RJ several times. It's one that's been over and over. There's been conversations of the Attorney General's involvement, which is a state officer. Why couldn't Nevada Realtors take over LVR? I mean, I explain this to someone who has no idea.
Look at me. Two separate organizations. Like, just because we're all realtor associations, it doesn't mean we have a hierarchy over them. We're not their managers, we're not their bosses, and we don't have control over that association. They have a board, they have CEO, they have all this stuff in place to run their organization. That's outside of our purview, right? No different than NAR could step in and take over their organization as well. Now, there's things that can be happen. NAR could revoke a charter or different things like that, take away their realtor brand, so to speak. But even if they did that, that organization still exists and it still moves on however it moves on. And so it's a natural thought process to think, okay, local, state, national, and you're all part of it. We're part of a three-way agreement on what services kind of we provide. But overall, like I said, we don't run that organization, and we don't have say in how that organization is run.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so there's no taking over. And again, that's the same kind of questions that we've had of like, can you guys just step in and do this? And we also, it's important for each organization to handle their matters the way they handle their matters. And so when we say that, it's because we have had a lot of people wanting our opinion and wanting us to weigh in. And we know that, under their current interim CEOs, they have a great handle on what their investigation is, and we're always there to support. And I think that that's a really important message that we've said from the very beginning. I think because if a complaint is filed with LVR, it's probably filed with us too. We only technically can investigate complaints that have to do with our own board of directors. And so we've really, really, really like to follow our bylaws and policies and stay within those lines. And so, but we've offered help in any way. And I know Brandon early on said anything that we can do to support, like we've done, if there's ever been a change of a CEO at a local association and they need help, that we just all help each other. The same thing with, like, you go back to my staffing at the beginning, where most of the staff, when I stepped into this role, was no longer there or moved on shortly after. And so you're looking to other states, right? And looking at other states of, what can you come in and tell us what really works? And we are big believers in like subject matter experts coming in and helping reorganize. And so I think that that's something, at least like that we looked at this year, in the change of CEO the last 2 years, the change of leadership, of how are we going to make. Yeah, well, but continuing on this pathway of how are we going to make this organization the best it can be? How are we going to have a high functioning board that, like, we don't get any complaints this next year, that they feel like their voices are being heard? How are we going to have more town halls and input from members? Like, what's been really important for us this year, and this is on a different tangent, is having a strategic plan that was up to date with changing times to our members' needs, with the input of, with as many people as we can. So our strategic plan was not created this year in a room with 6 people. Our strategic planning sessions were many sessions, many layers. And we wanted to hear it. It's like we don't think we know what's best. We want to hear from you what you need. We want to hear from you.
Oh, you want to hear from me. I'm all husband.
But we want that information, and we want it, and so that we can be the best organization that we can be. And so when we talk about the noise and all the things that distract and take away from the work we're doing, we're just going to continue to put in the hard work, grow, evolve, change, create platforms for you guys to succeed. And at the end of the day, we're hoping that that's going to be enough.
So like my grandmother used to say, when I can't control it, I mind my own business, right? So that's, you guys, the point is you don't control LVR, you're separate. And it would make no sense for someone to take over someone else's organization when they have no right to. I completely get that.
I'll say this, though. I'm confident they've got some of the right people there to right that ship. Yeah. And so, I mean, some of it takes some patience from the members. Some of it says, stay off of social media. Don't fuel the fire. Don't create some stuff. Have the conversations with the leadership there, and be part of the change or the positive rather than the negative.
Be the change you want to see in others. Is that what you're telling me?
Your grandma tell you that too.
She said a lot. Okay, so let's change directions a little bit. Let's get some of your favorite parts. What, for both of you, question for both of you, what's your favorite service or committee or group at Nevada Realtors that you're just like, this is what I'm here for?
I love the Leadership Academy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you guys know my passion. Okay, you still haven't gone through it.
I've never gone through the Leadership Academy.
I think he'd be denied.
Yeah, I think you should go through it this next year.
Do you think it'll help me be a better leader at Nevada Realtors?
Absolutely. It's going to make you be a better man all the way around. So the leadership.
Have a conversation with Amy.
She says I'm all the way around, though.
I think all the way around. I think what's been really special about the Leadership Academy is the idea of there's going to be leaders that are going to be coming in after we are all gone, having solid succession plans. And
Brandon never leaves. I just want to point that out.
Well, 4 more years. And I think that, having solid leaders that, and I don't want to use the word buy-in, but can subscribe to a certain energy behind what we're doing, and to see this bond of the class each year. And by the way, the class has evolved since. So I took that program over 8 years ago, and the speakers that are there now are far different than when you went through. That's why it'd be fun if you actually could go sit through some of the sessions. But it really has evolved. We've kept a couple of the things that are the framework the same. I know Las Vegas Realtors started their own leadership, or they kind of refurbished or reimagined theirs this year to kind of have some similar things. And I think that's been a question. Is it still different enough? And absolutely. We're going to continue to evolve the state leadership program. We want you to go through whatever local leadership programs offered for you. Absolutely. Hands down, do it, because it'll make you a better leader, understand their processes. The state looks more into personal and professional development, more than what do committees do. And it's been so fun watching the leaders that have come through and have no clue of what they're even going to do in leadership, and then go on to become state presidents. Tom, for example, when he's gone now, but he's just left the room. And so,
he's not gone.
Sorry, I don't want to scare anybody.
From your lips to God's ears.
So, but he's a perfect example of he didn't know what he wanted to do necessarily when he went through the program. And so you have so many of these incredible leaders, and the bond that they form. It's such a fun group. It's there's so much of this that we can take seriously.
I got to say this though, I because this is something we've had a bone of contention about. I actually have viewed the people that have gone through it and seen transformation, and I've seen them get what they were looking for, and I have seen them move up through the leadership. And my initial argument against the leadership group was why spend that much money on so few people? What would that really do? And I mean, it's a big financial commitment that the state makes. But I got to say, after 10 or 12 years of me watching its transition, many of those leaders have come up through the organization, some good, some bad. And but you sit around the room and you ask the group to stand up, and there's only a few of us sitting down. I think that's great. I think the investment was well worth the return. But I think it comes back to the people that supported it. I noticed their involvement made the difference. Your involvement made the difference. Your support of it made the difference. And I think that's what I saw was so good about it. But yeah, I don't hate the leadership program completely.
And the more you don't know it, like you're a perfect person that needs to go through it, because I think that
Could you just repeat that on the perfect what?
No, just cut it after you're a perfect person.
All right. So obviously we found out what you like the best.
I love that, because I think it's, I think so much of what we do, you would take very seriously.
Yeah.
I think seeing like a spark light up in people's eyes that and we're not telling them what to be passionate about. They're telling us what they're passionate about. And to see that, I just love that. I think it's special.
It's all roses.
Yeah.
For me, I went through the leadership in 2013, and
best class ever.
yeah, it will always be. That's back when they used to take you out on a horse, put you in the desert, and at night, and then leave you, and you had to find your way back. No, I'm just kidding. It was never that bad.
No way.
Yeah. But for me, it was great because it brought the state together.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is, being in Las Vegas, you kind of get focused on the South. And when I was able to spend time with people in some of these rural communities and stuff like that, great friends, great relationships that were built, and being able to see that we're an entire state instead of just a local. So that was really good for me. But some of my favorite things this past year getting in there is you've got committees and stuff, and they run different than your local association, so to speak. But one of my favorite things was the Industry Forward PAG that we put together, which was brokers across the state. And this was really put together as we were going through the lawsuits and the fear of before the settlement and stuff like that, and what the brokers needed that we could maybe help with. And so we got a lot of great insight and a lot of great things out of that. And so some of the things that I like the most is those kinds of groups that are put together where you get that wealth of information.
So that's your favorite thing? This should be titled, "These are a few of my favorite things," section of the meeting. My favorite thing in Nevada Realtors, I've got to say that there are a lot of things I didn't like at Nevada Realtors. I mean, like, honestly, I thought their committee structure wasn't very prominent. I thought it was kind of, I've seen that rebirth and the change of it. My favorite participation group is the PACs. Like, I have learned so much information that I've utilized in my business that has made me a better Nevadan. It's made me a better realtor. But the flow of information and getting that out and the conversations there, to me, like, that was the pinnacle, right? And none of the other pieces were working as well as the PAC and legislative. And I've seen the other pieces start to gain life. And it does come back to the people that you put into them. And I think the turnover of leadership, and even in this case, the continuity of leadership, of bringing great people up to those positions has made a difference. And it's made those things change, just like your Industry Forward PAC. That was a group of major players in the real estate market that said, what do we think and where are we going? And you guys utilized that to take them to the next step.
Well, things were born out of that. I mean, we've had webinars that were greatly attended, the podcasts, all those kinds of things came out of that PAG. So we didn't just meet to meet. Yeah. We met to actually move the needle.
Uh-huh. And I think with staff, it's the same way. We want to have staff that are energized and excited to be there.
Yeah.
I think that, a lot of what we had for many years was people, again, going in and like checking a box and, doing a thing. But now we're like, if we have staff and if we're hiring, and actually we've never taken time to think about, as an office, what kind of culture do we want? What kind of value system do we want? Yeah. And we're actually starting our new year off, starting next week on Tuesday, coming together with new staff and the existing staff that's pretty new as well. And just saying, like, what kind of office do you want to walk into? What does it look like? Like, how are you serving the members? How are you answering the phone? When we go to our board meetings, what does that engagement look like? Like, there's certain members that, that we go above and beyond for. And why is that? If they need that, there's, members that are in their 80s that you want to travel with them so that they make sure that they get to point A to point B. And so it's like all these little things that might not seem like a big deal, but they are a big deal, and they are a big deal to our culture and to our value system. And so all of that, having our staff understand what the mission is of our organization, it makes them excited. Like, the more excited they are about the projects they're creating, because I love having people that come with ideas, right? And they're like, this is what, for instance, the strat plan says this. Now, how are we going to get there? Like leadership wants this. How are we going to get there?
Yep.
Come with ideas, and then having that excitement around that.
I will say my favorite event has always been the president-elect, and CEO retreat. For me, that was the most enlightening to find out what other boards and stuff are doing and what other presidents are focused on. But my favorite Nevada Realtors activity is the installation. Now, installations across the board have gotten a lot of guff. And why do we do it? In your opinions, why do we do it? I mean, the state installation is only 150 people. It's very low key. It's very personal. It's very connected. But why do we, or should we not continue to do them?
Well, for me, like, I don't like that recognition, that kind of stuff being put out in the forefront. And I've always kind of dreaded them, but I see the value in them is bringing these teams together. It's not just recognition of a president coming in; it's an entire board that's coming in, and it's a celebration of what the association does in bringing in the past leaders and the future leaders and stuff to get a taste of everything. So I see the value, and I'll just tell you, thank you and Keith for emceeing the state one this year, and thank you for everything that you did and the staff to put that together. That was probably, I shouldn't say that probably, and I don't say this because I was coming in. That was the funnest installation I've ever been to.
I was in a onesie at mine. I can't think you can say funner than that.
But I didn't dress up for yours, right? But there was one time where it just seemed like the energy was just there, and the people, it was just, people wanted to be there, and it was just kind of a culmination of the year and the finale and everything else. And it was really good, and it really set the pace moving forward. And I had a lot of people come up to me after and say it was the funnest one, but more importantly, I had a lot of people come up after and said, I want to get involved and put me to work. Whatever I can do to help you guys, I want to do. And to me, that is a success.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you think about the different board meetings and gatherings that we've utilized our building for to save money, there's nothing like getting, and this is why leadership works so well, getting people in an environment that is a little bit more casual to like bond, right? And that is the goal across the board of like mix things up. Don't just sit with the same people that you know. Don't just be, like come with a friend and leave with that same friend. Actually, like see how you can help each other across the state and how you can come together for, like that, like the kickoff. It was like a culmination, but it's also the kickoff of the new year of like, what are all the things that we're planning? And it is a dinner. Like dinners are going to cost money, right?
Sure.
Like it is what it is. What was really important to Brandon was that there wasn't a bunch of extra things that don't matter. Obviously you and Keith, like we didn't have to pay you guys, and you guys did a great job.
They should have had to. Let me put it out there.
But like, things like that like, how are we cutting costs to make sure that we're having a great dinner? Again, dinner out anywhere is going to cost money. 20% service fee anywhere is going to cost money. But having that bonding, and then throughout the rest of the year, we're going to utilize our building and utilize like our board dinner before one of our meetings was at a bar and grill. So we were, like super cash, like picnic tables. So what are we going to do to balance out, but also make sure that you, as a volunteer leader, I don't want to forget to say this, like you put in so much time and energy and commitment. You put aside your business. A lot of times you don't get to go to all the things with your family. I mean, your daughter's dance recital, your son's soccer games, like you really do miss a lot of those things, your own networking to actually be a volunteer leader. And so to have that night of like, a dinner with your other volunteer leaders, like that is what we should do more, because that is the sense of community. And then that's a sense of camaraderie of what we're going to accomplish, at the legislature. And so I think it's great. And you guys, I want to commend you guys for the time and energy and effort you put in, because it's a lot and there's not, you get very little thank yous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you do it. Wife.
You're talking to her now.
Yeah. I'm looking at you.
Sure, he's looking at me.
I mean, you
Okay.
the CEO, you do all this stuff. I mean, how do you hold it all together, and how do you juggle it all?
Well, I have my husband who happens to be here today, and he's busy with. I mean, no, I don't. I do not know. Like the support. If I didn't have the support at home, because this job, it's. I want it everything that I want to do. I want to put my whole heart into this, and I know because we've had many talks even back when you were president of like what goals.
You mean the good old days?
The good old days, of like what the balancing of life, like what my ambitions were, But I think about it like this: like I want to, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to pour my whole heart into it, and I do want to leave it better than what I found it. Like, and I want to be here to support you guys, and so whatever that looks like that's my goal. I do have many sleepless nights that I end up calling you, and you're the voice of
I call you back in the morning when I wake up.
You're the voice of reason through a lot of things, but I think what Tom's always said. Tom has so much wisdom. Is one day at a time, one issue at a time. And I think that we've all really kind of shifted our mindset even this year from the word issue to opportunity. And I know it might sound cliche, but I think actually like thinking about all these, issues that we've had and all these hurdles we've had to overcome and turn them into what opportunity do we have to reimagine this, to rethink this, to do this better, to leave this behind. And you almost sometimes don't have the patience because you want it all done like immediately. You want to snap your fingers and walk in, and you have a beautiful new building, a space that people can come, a feeling of community, a board that operates like this. But we're getting there, and I think we're putting the right people in place to help get us there.
An organization can only grow as far as the imagination of the people that lead it, and so I think that's why we've seen such growth and potential because of the two of you. I don't need to blow smoke. I've already done all this stuff. So I think the point at the end of the day is the misinformation that's out there has harmed us as an industry, and the people defending that are the two of you. And so, is there anything else that you want to clear the air on while we're here clearing the air that you've seen or anything else you want to add?
You're a really great guy.
Oh, well, thank you.
Was there
a question?
No, I feel like you look at someone like you, Chris, that you really have done all of you've done everything in leadership that you could have done up until
leadership.
Except for the Leadership Academy, and we're recruiting you for that. But actually, you don't even need to submit an application. We just need to get you in that. But you're still willing to like stand up and serve wherever you're needed. And I
have a problem. It's a family thing, hereditary.
And I really hope that like anybody that can utilize you and your abilities, like, is you are so smart and you're able, and like, and we talk about this all the time. It's not just like putting a bunch of like-minded people together, because like Brandon will say, oh, Chris and I we think differently a lot, or we'll actually,
we look alike, but we don't agree on anything.
but it's actually like it's not just having people that all agree in the same room. It's actually having people that are willing to think and explore, and not just are so dead set and not so dead set in like my opinion that like nobody can sway me, that you can actually, come around. And so I really hope that that we continue to see your leadership. And obviously we're lucky to have you as Vice Chair of Legislative, which means Chair of Legislative in the coming years. And those are important positions, right?
It's only one meeting a month, they said, so I'm excited about it.
I got a good idea. Since you went through all this really young, right? You still got your whole life ahead of you. So we're going to start you off on a plan to go through leadership and then make a run through everything again.
Everything
straight up to NAR president.
It's funny because somebody was asking that the other day. They said, would you do it again? And, what I got out of all of this is all of you. And I know that's kind of funny to say that, but like the people that I made friends with, the people that I went through those issues with, the people that I struggled with to go through it, that was the community that I created around me. I mean, those are my friends. Those are the people I work with. That's my family. Literally, some of them I'm related to. And so like, I couldn't imagine not doing it again. I couldn't imagine doing it again because it would be such a different experience. But like, I could see 20 years, 30 years from now, and because I could still do it then, going back through this again, maybe, I don't know. But I think that once should be enough for anybody. Once should be enough for anybody and anything. But, back to back, it's okay.
Yeah, but it's still one, right? It's still
One.
And I'll add one thing: the relationships they're important, and I'll take it back to an installation. I think yours and my friendship really developed or started at an installation
We were at the Reno install.
for Six Dad.
Yeah, we were Reno install sitting in the back, and we had served on the board together, but we were across the board table, but not really. We didn't know each other that well. And I just got on a while ago, and you just got on a while ago, and that was our first actual conversation. I was like, this guy's kind of cool.
His wife didn't think so. She's like, we're separating these
Yeah,
two.
These two can't sit together. Well, thank you again for all that you guys do. Thank you for what Nevada Realtors is doing to protect the industry. And I think to everyone out there, you can't be upset about the results when you're not involved.
Mhm.
And you said it earlier that if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And that always has resonated with me that I can't afford to not do this for a living. And I can't afford for the industry to go away. And so that's why the work you do is so important, that people should pay attention to it.
Yeah. And Brandon I know you all know this as your broker, but Brandon is one of the most phenomenal humans that I have ever met. He is so special, and he cares so much about you, your business, your families, your livelihoods, your successes. And so you're so lucky not just to have him at the helm as your state president, but actually like have him as your broker. And I love how he does kind of cherry pick people. Like he knows who's gonna going to be a great leader, and he fosters those people. And so if Brandon takes time with you and for you, like sit with him and appreciate it, because he has helped me grow like there's no tomorrow in 1 year. So I can't wait for year 2.
And Tiffany's the best at embarrassing me. But no, seriously.
She does it so good.
I couldn't do this 2 years in a row or even really made it through the first year without her. She is the leader of this thing, and I'm happy to be following through. No, and this is you're going to be the one constant for many, many years, whereas we come and go. And so thank you for all that you do, and thank you for putting the staff together, because my new favorite, actually changing from that PAG, is the staff and what you've created up there at NVR. It is a pleasure to go up there and to go into that building. If you ever went into it before the changes and stuff and the updating, it was not the most welcoming feeling. And now you walk in and you just feel you're at home. So thank you for everything.
That's what we're all about, is putting people in homes.